What truly happened in Eden that forever changed the fate of humanity? And how does this story still resonate in your life today? Discover how God's plan to redeem the world began, from the fall to Christ's ultimate victory. This journey could transform the way you see life and the divine purpose meant for you. In the beginning, before everything became as we know it, there was a perfect purpose, a divine plan that connected creation to the Creator. In His infinite wisdom, God created humanity in His own image, reflecting not only His appearance but His character, love, and an unprecedented spiritual connection. Adam and Eve were formed to live in full harmony with God, in an intimate and profound relationship. The earth was more than a home, it was the place where they would rule as God's representatives, caring for creation in an act of co-creation and responsibility. This was the original plan, a world where heaven and earth were united without barriers. Imagine the perfection of this setting. Each dawn brought the presence of God, a loving Father walking alongside His children. Adam and Eve didn't just live, they thrived in an environment where everything was in balance. They enjoyed the garden while caring for it, reflecting the authority and care God had entrusted to them. Every action was an expression of divine glory. There was no fear, pain, or separation, only a covenant that flowed naturally, like a river following its course. But what makes this story so fascinating is not just the initial perfection but the depth of the plan. Even amid purity, God gave humanity something unique that even the angels didn't possess: free will. A powerful gift, laden with both potential for good and for disaster. Yet this freedom of choice was essential. Without it, love would be forced, and a true relationship with God would be impossible. This initial scenario wasn't just about a garden or a covenant, it was the eternal destiny of humanity at stake. Every detail of God's original plan pointed to an unbreakable relationship, a divine dance in perfect harmony between Creator and creation. But this harmony wouldn't be automatic. How could it be preserved? And what would happen if it were broken? This story, told from the book of Genesis, isn't just about Adam and Eve, it's about all of us. It's an invitation to reflect on how God desires us to live today, not just as individuals but as part of a greater purpose. Have we honored the original plan? Or have we drifted away from the spiritual harmony for which we were created? At the heart of the Garden of Eden stood a marker between freedom and responsibility, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. In His love and justice, God gave Adam and Eve a clear command. They could enjoy everything, govern the earth, and live in communion with Him, but there was a boundary. This boundary was not arbitrary, it was an invitation to trust. After all, a true relationship with God doesn't arise from forced obedience but from the free choice to follow the path He prepared. And so, the test of freedom emerged, but in an unexpected way. The serpent, cunning and persuasive, sowed doubt. Did God really say that? These words echoed like a challenge. Adam and Eve faced a crucial choice: to remain faithful to God's divine plan or to yield to the temptation of deciding for themselves what was right and wrong. Their decision changed everything. By eating the fruit, they didn't just disobey, they shattered the spiritual harmony that upheld all of creation. The divine glory that covered them was replaced by shame. For the first time, they realized they were naked, exposed, and vulnerable. This act marked not just a transgression but the fall of humanity, creating a painful and irreparable separation between God and His creation, a barrier no human effort could break. But this story isn't just about a past mistake. It challenges us to look within ourselves. How often do we cross the boundaries God has set? How often do we choose our own way, ignoring the consequences? Adam and Eve represent the essence of humanity, a constant struggle between obedience and rebellion. The separation from God brought immediate and profound consequences. The pure and intimate relationship was broken. The earth, once a place of abundance, became a land of hard labor and pain. All of creation felt the effects of this rupture. Yet, even in the midst of tragedy, there was a glimmer of hope. God did not abandon His creation. He promised a plan of restoration, a path to redeem everything that had been lost. And here arises a reflection: how do we deal with our own falls? Do we recognize our failures and seek reconciliation, or do we remain trapped in separation from God? This is not just a story to be heard, it's an invitation to become active participants in divine reconciliation. The darkest moment after Adam and Eve's fall revealed something profound about God's character. His justice is perfect, but His mercy is infinite. When Adam and Eve realized their nakedness, they tried to cover themselves with leaves, a fragile and inadequate effort to deal with their guilt and shame. But God intervened, sacrificing an animal to clothe them with skins, the first sacrifice that pointed to the gravity of sin and the need for something greater to remedy it. This act was more than practical, it was a powerful symbol. The shed blood underscored the cost of sin, while the garments of skin represented a protection that went beyond human efforts. Even in the midst of crisis, God demonstrated that His mercy and justice go hand in hand. He did not ignore their disobedience, but neither did He abandon them. This perfect balance reveals a God who never gives up on His children, even when they fail. Here, we see the beginning of a pattern that would repeat throughout human history: temporary sacrifices, which not only covered sin but also pointed to something eternal. Imagine the weight Adam and Eve bore in that moment, realizing their choice had affected not only their lives but all of creation. Everything that was once pure was now marked by the consequences of sin. Even so, the sacrifice didn't completely erase the separation between God and humanity. It was only a temporary solution. The perfect covenant broken in Eden would require a definitive restoration. The expulsion of Adam and Eve from the garden, though it seemed harsh, was also an act of mercy. Remaining in Eden and eating from the tree of life would have kept them trapped in a state of spiritual separation forever. Thus, their expulsion became an act of protection and preservation. This part of the story invites us to reflect: how do we face our own failures? Do we try to hide them with temporary solutions, like leaves that cannot withstand time, or do we seek God's mercy to clothe us with something more lasting? The story of Adam and Eve reminds us that even when all seems lost, God always offers a path to redemption. Even in the tragedy of the fall, God revealed a plan for restoration. At the moment Adam and Eve faced the consequences of their disobedience, God pronounced a promise that would echo through generations. Genesis 3 verse 15. He announced the offspring of the woman who would crush the head of Satan. This promise wasn't merely a glimmer of hope amid chaos, it was the declaration of a plan to restore the broken relationship with humanity and to defeat evil once and for all. This promise was more than words, it became the foundation of God's entire plan. From that moment in Eden, human history began to align with the arrival of Christ, the promised offspring who would bring ultimate redemption. In the meantime, temporary sacrifices served as reminders of the cost of sin and God's justice, pointing toward the eternal sacrifice that was to come. Consider the depth of this promise. In His infinite mercy, God chose humanity itself as the instrument of redemption, through a woman. This act would not be one of force but of sacrificial love. The cross was no accident, it was the fulfillment of God's plan from the beginning. Every prophecy, every event in Israel's history, converged on this central moment. But why does this matter to us today? Because this promise of redemption transcended Adam and Eve, it extends to all humanity. Christ came to restore what was lost and to offer the opportunity for reconciliation with God. The divine plan is an invitation to return to the original purpose, to live in harmony with God, reflecting His image, and enjoying an intimate relationship with the Creator. This promise reminds us that even in the most difficult circumstances, God is working to fulfill His plans. When all seems lost, He creates a way. That way is Christ, the bridge that reconnects humanity to God and restores everything that was broken. At the center of the entire biblical narrative stands the cross of Jesus Christ, the moment when the promise of Genesis 3 verse 15 was fulfilled. By giving His life, Christ did more than die, He crushed the head of Satan, the serpent who initiated the rebellion against God in Eden. The cross was not merely a symbol of suffering but the battlefield where evil was defeated, and redemption became a reality. But how can we grasp the depth of this victory? Imagine the weight Jesus bore. On the cross, He took upon Himself the sins of all humanity, from Adam and Eve to each one of us. The separation that began in Eden was reconciled in that moment. When Christ declared, "It is finished," the veil of the temple was torn, removing the barrier between God and humanity. From that point forward, everyone gained direct access to the Father. This victory was not just spiritual, it was eternal. The cross represents the salvation available to all who choose to believe in Jesus. It is not merely about being freed from sin, but about complete transformation, reconciliation with God, and restoration to the original purpose of living as reflections of His image, in communion with Him. However, the story doesn't end at the cross. On the third day, the resurrection proved that death would not have the final word. Christ rose again, securing ultimate victory over Satan, sin, and death. This is the essence of the gospel: a God who became man, triumphed for us, and now calls us to live in that victory. This victory transcends Eden and the cross. It invites us to be part of God's divine plan. Today, we are called to be ambassadors of this reconciliation, reflecting God's love and justice in a world still marked by the fall. Each time we choose Christ's path, we affirm this victory and become participants in His mission. And what about you? Are you ready to live in this victory? Share this message with someone who needs to hear it, and help spread this story. Together, we can reach more people with this powerful truth. The story of Adam and Eve is not just a tale from the past, it is a timeless reminder that, even in the face of the fall, God never gave up on His creation. From Eden to the cross of Christ, the divine plan carved a path of reconciliation and eternal salvation. Today, that victory is within reach for all who choose to believe and accept God's call. Now, the decision is yours. How will you respond to this invitation? Share your thoughts in the comments and tell us how this message has impacted your life. And don't forget, in the next video, we'll explore other stories that can strengthen your faith and inspire your journey. Help us spread this message by sharing it with someone who needs to hear it.